welcome to the Nature of Connection. My name is Michaela, and today I'm going to guide you on a short virtual hike and tell you about the many benefits of parks and open spaces. I think you'll be surprised to hear some of them. Before we get started, I want you to know that your safety is my first priority, so make sure that you're in a safe and comfortable viewing location, not driving in your car, and remember that at any time you can pause this video to get a drink of water, something to eat, or use the restroom. You also might want to grab a piece of paper and a pen for a short activity at the end of our program today. Last, I want you to know that this program will include a brief discussion of wildfires, which can be a sensitive topic for some folks. So if you're not comfortable with this, feel free to click off this video. With that being said, let's get started. Before we start walking, I want to invite you all to close your eyes and think about a time that you enjoyed the outdoors. Think about what you felt like in that moment. What were you doing? What did you see, hear, or smell? What made that time outdoors enjoyable for you? Maybe you imagined yourself exploring nature, discovering a new plant or animal, or maybe you were just spending time with a friend or family member. These are all things that people enjoy doing outside, and often they happen in parks and open spaces. Now, what if I told you that these places offered more than just leisure or recreation? That's exactly what we're going to discover today. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to tell you how parks and open spaces provide the necessary ingredients for a resilient society by keeping our ecosystems and our communities connected in the fight against climate change. As we walk, I'm going to talk about how these places support healthy ecosystems, buffer communities from extreme weather events, and bring us all a little closer together. By the end, I hope that you'll have a better understanding of all of these benefits and have some ideas for how to support these environments and your communities. Let's go, follow me this way. First, let's talk about why we should care about climate adaptation at all. Climate change is a consequence of our natural systems getting out of balance. Here in Northern California, you might notice that our weather is getting hotter and drier for longer each year, which results in some more extreme weather events and natural disasters, such as wildfires and droughts. These impacts can be dangerous for the animals that live in these places, as well as for us and our communities. The good news, and what we'll focus on today, is that parks and open spaces can help us and nature thrive despite these changes. That's climate adaptation. Let's keep going, and I'll show you how these things are connected. One of my favorite things about spending time in nature is observing plants and animals. I bet many of you enjoy this as well. But did you know that parks and open spaces help to support healthy ecosystems, which builds their resilience to the impacts of climate change? Let's see if we can find any evidence of a healthy ecosystem here today. For the next few moments, I invite you to observe this landscape. Try to see how many different species of plants and animals you can find. Remember the number that you counted, and now do the same thing as you look out your window at home. Which area had more species? If you saw more here at the park, it's likely because parks and open spaces are like safe zones for wildlife. When there's a wide variety of plant and animal species somewhere, we call this biodiversity. Biodiversity is important because the plants and animals that we see out in nature are connected to almost every aspect of our lives. This includes our food, our water, fresh air, and so much more depend on the health of our ecosystems. We can all help foster biodiversity by supporting our parks and open spaces. But this isn't the only way that parks and open spaces help support healthy ecosystems. Like I said before, parks and open spaces are often safe zones for wildlife from the impacts of climate change. As climate continues to change and disrupt the natural balance of our ecosystems, wildlife will need these parks and open spaces, or safe zones, to escape their old homes and seek refuge in a new place. This is called land connectivity, and it's important because it allows for species to survive and thrive despite the impacts of climate change. Think of it like this. Imagine that you are your favorite animal enjoying life in your native habitat. But as global temperatures continue to rise, it's becoming more and more challenging for you to live there. To ensure your survival, you're going to have to move to a new habitat. This might be somewhere that is a higher elevation, like up a mountain, or a higher latitude, like somewhere closer to the North Pole. But to do this, we're going to need to choose between two paths. Think about what you notice about the two paths to safety. If you're like me, you may have noticed that this one has a lot of parks and open spaces, and the other one only has a few. Now, imagine that you're trying to navigate each path. Now think about which one you'd rather take. Why would you take that one? If you're like me, you'd prefer the one that has more parks and open spaces, because these are places to rest and eat while you're on your way to your new home. This network of parks and open spaces helps migrating wildlife get to their new destination safely. We can help create this path by supporting our local parks and open spaces. These examples show us that parks and open spaces are valuable, but they also provide our communities with essential ecosystem services by supporting our daily lives, especially in the face of climate change. Ecosystem services means that these places add value to our lives in some way. For example, here in Northern California, we have hot, dry summers and wet winters, which due to climate change are becoming more extreme. This leads to increased wildfires and droughts. Luckily, one of the ecosystem services that parks and open spaces provide is a buffer to protect our communities from the dangers of these extreme weather events. For example, parks and open spaces can buffer our communities from wildfires. Imagine that you live here on this map. This section represents your town that is on the edge of a wildland. This area here is a public open space preserve. You can see that if there were to be a wildfire, the preserve would allow your town to manage the fire before it reached the community. However, this is the town next door to yours. What do you notice about the park between the town and the wildland? I see that it is much smaller in comparison to the other map. Think about which option is more beneficial to the community. Parks and open spaces not only buffer communities from wildfires, but also droughts, which can be intensified by the increasing temperatures in Northern California. Let me show you how this works. I'm going to pour some water on two different surfaces, and I want you to tell me which one you think would be better at absorbing and storing the water underground. You can see that the water poured here likely has the opportunity to get stored as groundwater, while the water here likely did not reach the soil at all. This is why parks and open spaces are important. They allow more water to get stored into our groundwater supply, which will help us get through the next drought. We can help to maintain these essential ecosystem services by supporting parks and open spaces. In addition to these environmental benefits, parks and open spaces provide places for us to build community and resilience so we can thrive in the face of climate change. Many of you are probably aware of the health benefits, both mental and physical, associated with spending time in nature, and that parks and open spaces are popular places for people to come together and form connections with each other and nature, both of which are essential to adapting to climate change, because when we are healthy and form connections, we can come up with solutions to our most pressing issues. What's more is that we can actually use what we see in nature to inspire these solutions. This is called biomimicry. Let's practice this now. For this activity, I invite you to either find a friend to talk to or a pen and paper to write with for this short activity. I'm going to show you a view of this trail and give you a few moments to practice using nature and connection as an inspiration for climate adaptation. First, find something interesting on the trail to focus on, then consider these prompts. I notice. I wonder, this reminds me of, then think about how this object might inspire climate adaptation or solutions. Think big, there are no wrong answers. Now imagine if everybody who visits this trail or watches this video does this. What if we put all of our ideas together or helped each other work on them? The possible solutions to climate change would be endless. When we use parks and open spaces as a place to connect with nature and each other, we have the opportunity to create the future that we want to see. This is the nature of connection. But you might be wondering, how exactly do we do this? I'm going to share with you a few examples of how we can support parks and open spaces while still having fun. You can contribute to community science. Download an app like iNaturalist or iSeeChange and document what you see while exploring parks and open spaces. These contributions to science help us learn more about our natural world and how to continue to both mitigate and adapt to the impacts of climate change. Visit or purchase a membership to parks and open spaces near you. When you responsibly use these places, it shows that you support their role in climate adaptation. Additionally, if you have the means to do so, buying a membership, paying for parking, or a program helps these organizations maintain these lands and keep them operating. Last, continue to learn more about the impacts of climate change and different adaptation strategies, and share it with your community. Read books, do online research, take a class, or anything that really makes your brain think. Links to all of these recommendations are in the description box below. Thank you so much for joining me on this virtual walk. We're nearing the end of our time together. Today we talked about how parks and open spaces help to support healthy ecosystems, buffer our communities from extreme weather events, and bring us all a little closer together. Before we say goodbye, I'd like you to once more close your eyes and imagine yourself enjoying nature, but this time with a better understanding of how these places help us adapt to the impacts of climate change. How has your vision changed since the beginning of our virtual hike today? I hope you learned something about parks and open spaces' roles in climate adaptation and got some ideas for how to support them in the future. Let me know what you learned and what you plan to do in the comments below. Also, if you have any questions for me, you can put those in the comments as well, and I'll do my best to answer all of them. I want to thank you for joining me on this hike today. For resources and more information, check the description box below. Remember, parks and open spaces are helping us become a more climate-resilient society, but also helping us connect more with each other. Thank you so much for watching. Bye now!